The HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast is fueled by Eukanuba. If you want to get the most of your dog in your training sessions, you need nutrition that holds nothing back. Eukanuba's new premium performance lineup is built with the nutrients dogs need to help unleash their max potential. That starts with providing energy that matches their efforts, supporting optimal nutrient delivery, and supporting post-exercise recovery. Check out the new Eukanuba Premium Performance lineup and find your dog's fuel at eukanubasportingdogs.com. You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. The HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast is powered by Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. CGA is the world's most comprehensive online gun dog training resource. They've got over 160 instructional videos that includes everything you need to take your 7-week-old puppy to a finished gun dog. Visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com to sign up for the free preview module and begin your training journey today. Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, the most advanced gun dog training resource on the web. Gunner kennels are engineered for your dog, designed for travel, and built for your peace of mind. The G1 kennel has set a new industry standard and put Gunner in a category all its own. They were started to protect your pet, and it continues to be at the center of everything that they do. Gunner's dedicated to building the best and safest pet travel crate on the market because man's best friend deserves man's best kennel. Check out their G1 series of kennels and accessories at gunner.com. All right, welcome back to Module 4, Lesson 4. We are talking about waterfowl identification. And this is super important when waterfowl hunting because you have to be able to understand what bird you are shooting to ensure that you're within your legal bag limits. And with so many different subspecies of waterfowl, and your limits vary greatly on how many per you can take, it's very critical to understand which ducks you're shooting at so that you don't inadvertently shoot over your limit. So the biggest thing that new waterfowl hunters struggle with is identifying birds in flight. There's a lot of things you can look for in birds in flight. You can look for the shape of the head, or the rate at which they beat their wings, or a speculum color, or their under feathers. There's a lot of different ways to identify birds in flight, but it's much more important to be able to identify a bird in flight than it is after it's shot, because at that point it's too late, and it's also much harder to identify while they're in flight. So that is definitely something that takes practice, but you should focus on that as a new waterfowl hunter.
Yeah, if you're unsure, you definitely should not shoot. I don't think there's anything. There are resources that we'll talk about, but there's nothing that can replace experience when it comes to, you can look at all the books you want, but when it comes to seeing the wing beats or seeing the size when they're in flight way off and as they're coming towards you, it just takes a little bit of time. So when you're scouting, take binoculars, make sure you're checking it, check them without binoculars so you can see how fast those wings are beating. And it's just there's nothing that can replace it. So, and a quick story about this morning, we were working gadwalls, and there's a group of 6. We had 4, 2 broke off, 4 were working us. And the 2, when they broke off, I thought they landed. And the other guy says, should we let the 2 land and then we'll wait for the other 4? They're like, sure. So the other 4 ended up boogering out. They left us. Well, then I look up and there's a duck on the water, and it goes up and starts beating its wings real quick, right? So I pull up on it thinking it's one of the 2 gadwall that I thought broke off. I pull up, safety off, quick look at it, and it's a grebe that had swam into our decoys. And I was about 1 second from pulling that trigger, and at the last second, I identified it, didn't shoot. I was like, holy cow. It's like, did you guys even see that? And they're like, no, like we weren't sure what it was. So being able to identify it can keep you from committing essentially a federal offense. Also, when you're in the Atlantic Flyway, when we're talking about a 2 mallard limit, there's it's tough if you don't know the difference between a wood duck that you can shoot 3 of and mallards that you can shoot 2 of. And, a mallard and a black duck look very similar. A mallard and a gadwall look very similar. It comes with experience. So take your time, study it, get out there and scout and check on those birds.
Yeah, and some resources that can help you with that is the DU app is good to help identify birds. My favorite method and the way I learned and used when I was learning is the LeMaster method book. It's cheap. You can buy it. It's a spiral bound book that allows you to help identify birds by a bunch of different methods. It's waterproof, so you can have it in your bag. It's affordable, very good. Can't recommend that enough. And then the last thing is there is no substitute for a good mentor, right? Someone that can be in the field with you, point out the bird that's flying and talk to you as to how they identify that bird so easily based on the characteristics that you're seeing in flight. So finding a good mentor, if available, is invaluable when it comes to learning waterfowl identification, particularly on birds in flight. But
does the DU app still have sounds? Does it have the sounds that a bird makes?
I don't know.
I haven't been on it in a while, but
I've never used the DU app for this purpose. I've always used the LeMaster method book. So I can't speak to how good the DU app is. I just know that they have one that does have some information about the different species of ducks. So long story short, definitely take the time to work on your identification skills so that you know what you're pulling the trigger at, and you don't have to post on Facebook and ask what kind of duck in this and get ridiculed by everyone because you didn't know before you pulled the trigger. That's going to do it for lesson 4. Lesson 5, we're going to come back and talk about scouting. That's going to do it for this episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. If you're new to the show, head over to iTunes, check out some of our past episodes, and while you're there, leave us a 5-star rating and review. It's the best way for like-minded hunters just like you to find our show. Check us out on social media. Check us out over at hpoutdoors.com and anywhere you can find quality podcast content. That's going to do it for this week. Till next time, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.